All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Stephanie Parent, and I'll facilitate today's workshop on the draft funding and policy changes for the fiscal year 2025-26 Clean Transportation Incentives Funding Plan, also known as the Funding Plan. A few quick announcements before we begin. We aim to post the meeting recording and attendee list on our webpage within about 2 weeks, and we'll email meeting registrants when that information is available. Staff will drop the link to the webpage in the chat. Today's materials, including the agenda and slides, are also on that page. You can email us during the meeting at cleantransportationincentive@arb.ca.gov, and we'll keep an eye on that inbox. Staff will drop the email address in the chat too. Please ensure that your name is visible on Zoom, or if you're calling in by phone, adjust the last four digits. You can adjust the phone number to the last four digits for your privacy. So now let's go over the agenda, and I will just check to make sure it looks like interpreter rooms are working fine for Spanish and ASL. Great. Next slide, please. I'll provide an introduction and overview about the funding plan before we go into detail on draft funding and/or policy changes for some of our incentive projects. Please note that we'll only present on projects that have draft funding and/or policy changes, and we won't have a Q&A session after the introduction and overview portion since we don't often get questions on this part of our meetings or presentations. But we'll still have an open comments and Q&A session toward the end of the meeting, and you can ask any additional questions or provide any comments at that point as well. We'll spend most of our time discussing draft funding and or policy changes to our individual mobility, community mobility, and medium and heavy duty incentive projects with a short 5-minute break in between. You'll be able to ask questions or provide comments at the end of those presentations. We'll wrap up our meeting with a summary and next steps. Next slide. In this section, I'll cover a bit about what the funding plan is, our investment programs, and historical funding, including cumulative funding for priority populations. Then we'll go over this year's budget and draft allocations for various clean transportation incentive projects. Then I'll hand things over to my teammates to go into more detail about our various incentive projects and staff's thoughts for funding allocations and potential policy changes, which have taken public comments and discussions into consideration. Slide. Funding plan is an annual, detailed guide for how CARB will allocate or assign any funds appropriated or designated to it by the legislature through the California state budget each year. Through the plan, CARB staff aims to meet CARB and California state goals to improve air quality and reduce the impacts of climate change. CARB staff also aims to meet community and business needs. Where any funding appropriations allow for CARB to allocate funds to different incentive projects. That's where we collaborate with you and other interested parties on how those funds should be split up. Lastly, the plan is a way for us to refine and improve how the projects work. Next slide. Funding plan covers projects under the Air Quality Improvement Program, or AQIP, and the Low Carbon Transportation Program. AQIP was created in 2007 and has served as the foundation for the Low Carbon Transportation Program. It's funded by smog abatement and vehicle registration fees that are deposited into the Air Pollution Control Fund. This program focuses on zero emission, heavy duty projects that reduce criteria pollutants and air toxics. The Low Carbon Transportation Program is part of the California Climate Investments, or CCI. CCI are funded by proceeds from the sale of state owned allowances from quarterly cap and trade auctions that are deposited into the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. This program has also received funding from the general fund and other one time funding sources. And together, these investments support CARB's advanced technology, clean transportation incentive projects that reduce greenhouse gas emissions in priority populations. Next, I'll go over our historical funding. Next slide. This slide shows the funding appropriated to CARB from fiscal year 2009 2010 through fiscal year 2024-25. The pie chart shows the largest portion of funds have come from the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, shown on the left of the slide, followed by the State General Fund in the top right. Other smaller pots of funding include the Air Quality Improvement Fund, the Proposition 98 General Fund for zero emission school buses, and various one time funding sources. CARB was appropriated a total of $6.2 billion during this timeframe. Next, we'll talk about funding for priority populations. Next slide. Over the past decade, funds allocated to the variety of incentive projects in our portfolio that have benefited priority populations have increased overall, as shown on the slide. Our incentive projects started off with the aim to get zero emission vehicles and equipment into the mainstream. In fiscal year 2013-14, greenhouse gas reduction funds became available, and CARB was directed to tailor incentive projects toward people who live in disadvantaged communities. As projects matured and more projects launched, we and our partners began to increase the percentage of funds benefiting priority populations. In fiscal year 2021-22, 53% of funds benefited priority populations. And for the past 2 fiscal years, 60% of funds have benefited that same group. Next slide, please. We've updated the Clean Transportation Incentive Appropriations since the legislature passed the June 15th budget. Note that all amounts are approximate. In addition to the previous $35 million appropriated for the Air Quality Improvement Program, CARB was appropriated $132 million from the Air Pollution Control Fund due to a legal settlement. This funding is for the Clean Truck and Bus Voucher Incentive Program, also known as HVIP. There's no proposed funding in the current budget for individual and community mobility incentive projects. However, the legislature acted early on a budget-related item in Assembly Bill 100. They appropriated an additional $17 million for the regional Clean Cars for All programs from fiscal year 2024-25 funds. Even though the state budget for general fund dollars has been determined, the legislature and the governor's office are still negotiating the final greenhouse gas reduction fund budget. They have until September 12th this year to pass bills that could amend the state budget by adding or removing funds that were previously appropriated. Next slide, please. This slide shows CARB staff's draft allocations for various medium and heavy duty on-road vehicles and off-road equipment incentive projects. There's a large demand for the Clean Off-Road Equipment Voucher Incentive Project, so we propose to allocate $31 million to that project and contribute a small $2 million allocation to extend the administration of our demonstration and pilot projects under the Sustainable Heavy Duty Initiatives for Future Technology Program, also known as SHIFT. SHIFT projects that launched in the past year will continue through at least 2027 and require continued project administration. While we have flexibility to allocate air quality improvement program funds to various projects, the monies for the Air Pollution Control Fund, also known as APCF, from the Hino settlement must go to the Clean Truck and Bus Voucher Incentive Project, or HVIP, and its sub-programs. We propose to allocate most of the APCF dollars, $95 million, to the HVIP Standard Project, $25 million to the HVIP Transit Set Aside to support transit agencies ahead of deadlines for the Innovative Clean Transit Program, and $5 million to the Innovative Small E-Fleet Project to continue to support California's small fleets and businesses with the greatest assistance need. Next slide, please. Before we present on our incentive projects, I want to let you know that we're offering a short voluntary community survey again this year so we can learn about your community's needs and priorities related to clean transportation incentives. It's open now through August 26th. Staff will drop the link in the chat. Okay, on to our incentive projects. We'll begin with our individual mobility and community mobility incentive projects. These terms might sound a little different to you. We formally refer to the individual mobility incentive projects as light-duty vehicle purchase incentive projects. We thought that individual mobility more easily explains that this topic covers things like vehicles and e-bikes for individuals. For the community mobility incentive projects, we formally refer to these as the Sustainable Community-Based Transportation Equity Incentive Projects. That's a mouthful. Again, we thought the community mobility name more easily explains that this topic covers community type projects for places like neighborhoods and schools. Okay, I'll hand things over to my colleague, Catherine, to present on this topic. Next slide.
Awesome. Thanks, Steph. Hi, everybody. My name is Catherine Canepa. I'm an air pollution specialist at CARB, and I'll be briefly providing an overview on the individual and community mobility incentives.
Catherine, you might be muted.
Oh,
No, she's coming through.
Doesn't look like you are, but I'm not hearing you.
Could I get someone else to confirm that they hear me?
I can hear you, Catherine.
I'm hearing you.
Okay.
I remember I heard you earlier in our test.
Cool. Is it okay now, Steph, for you? Okay. I'm monitoring the chat.
Okay, it's just me.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead, but if anybody else has issues, let me know. So our individual and community mobility incentives help CARB make progress on our institutional goals and help aid California communities. Overall, these investments strive to reduce criteria pollutant and greenhouse gas emissions to improve air quality and public health, create an environment that accelerates zero-emission vehicle deployment to transform the state's fleet to clean vehicles, prioritize funding projects within priority population areas to address socioeconomic disparities, particularly through funding community-identified solutions that help improve access to key destinations and increase the number of mobility options available to communities. And lastly, these investments strive to alleviate environmental harms that are disproportionately felt by some communities due to historical inequities. State-level directives, including Assembly Bill 617, Senate Bill 375, and Senate Bill 350 are a few of the drivers behind these goals, as they focus on improvements to environmental health, improved access to clean transportation choices, and reducing climate emissions, such as by reducing vehicle miles traveled. As an agency, CARB incorporates the equity principles of these directives into the fabric and design of every project and program. Next slide, please. So next, I'll provide an overview of what these projects are. These projects, which include both the vehicle purchase incentives or the individual mobility incentives, as well as the clean mobility investments, aim to improve the accessibility of clean transportation to communities throughout the state and facilitate the transition to more sustainable modes. Environmental harms are felt inequitably across the state, and these programs are intended to tailor investments to best meet the needs of different individuals and communities. So first on the left, we have the individual mobility incentives. These projects focus on supporting individuals and households with the purchase of zero-emission vehicles. On the slide is a high-level description of what each project is designed to do. To ensure we are meeting communities where they are, the programs use a variety of methods to distribute incentives: needs-based models, application prioritization, technical assistance, and more. The projects in this portfolio include the Clean Cars for All programs, the Driving Clean Assistance Program, the California E-Bike Incentive Project, Access Clean California, and the California Integrated Travel Project. On the right, we have the community mobility incentives, which aim to address the transportation needs of Californians living in disadvantaged and low-income communities, and were developed with comprehensive community input and feedback. These projects provide funding to plan for and implement a variety of clean mobility solutions that can help folks get around without driving a personal car. The projects in this portfolio include statewide clean mobility options vouchers, regional clean mobility pilots, planning and capacity building grants, clean mobility in schools grants, and the Sustainable Transportation Equity Project grants. Next slide, please. The long-term strategy for light-duty vehicles and clean mobility projects serves as CARB's long-term investment strategy for clean transportation incentives funding for both the individual mobility incentives and the community mobility projects. The strategy serves as a roadmap showing how state incentives can help sustain and grow the light-duty zero-emission vehicle market in California and provide solutions at the community level for clean transportation options. It identifies key priority areas for investment and outlines an estimated 3-year funding need for these programs. The long-term strategy includes several key elements. It includes an update on California's light-duty zero-emission vehicle market, including a trajectory analysis to reaching 2030 ZEV goals. It includes a further discussion of achieving a sustainable light-duty zero-emission vehicle technology and market that includes vehicle choice diversity, consumer awareness, and incorporates the impact of federal policies. It includes a light-duty vehicle affordability analysis, given the current incentive landscape, an analysis of 3-year funding need for CARB's light-duty vehicle and clean mobility projects, a discussion of staff's longer-term vision for these projects, and finally, it serves as the annual supplemental report required by the 2018-2019 Budget Act. So next I'll provide, next slide, please. Excuse me. Can we go to the next slide? Perfect, thank you. So up next, I'll provide an overview and updates for the individual mobility incentive projects, which include Clean Cars for All, the Driving Clean Assistance Program, the California E-Bike Incentive Project, Access Clean California, the Zero Emission Assurance Project, and the California Integrated Travel Project. Next slide, please. This figure illustrates the light-duty vehicle purchase incentive projects, so known as individual mobility. I'll provide a quick overview on what these projects are, starting with the Driving Clean Assistance Program and moving counterclockwise. So first, the Driving Clean Assistance Program is a statewide program that helps individuals replace older vehicles with a clean vehicle and offers financial support by way of a vehicle grant or a low-interest loan. Clean Cars for All is run by the 5 major air districts and also provides a scrap and replace incentive in those districts' territories. The California E-Bike Incentive Project offers individuals payment assistance for the purchase of an electric bicycle. The Zero Emission Assurance Project, or ZAP, offers incentives for battery or fuel cell replacements to reduce the risk of buying a used zero-emission vehicle, and it complements the vehicle purchase projects. Cal-ITP, or the California Integrated Travel Project, helps support the implementation of contactless payment systems to make riding transit easier. And finally, Access Clean California is an outreach project focused on increasing awareness of the full suite of clean transportation equity incentives. This year, there's no funding allocated for any of these projects. Today, we are focusing our update on the Driving Clean Assistance Program and Clean Cars for All, since staff will be proposing policy changes that would affect these projects. Next slide, please. So like I said, no funding has been allocated to the Driving Clean Assistance Program or the Regional Clean Cars for All program through the funding plan this year. But other funding was recently made available through Carl Moyer State Reserve co-funding and Assembly Budget Bill 100 for the Regional Clean Cars for All program that we're experiencing high demand. This year, staff is focusing on program alignment as administrators, participants, and other stakeholders have expressed that this is essential to reducing confusion. We are hearing that the policies we set must remain flexible and that equity should be the focus when we are developing and implementing them. We know there will never be a one-size-fits-all, but by bringing alignment where appropriate, we will create resiliency and stability and advance equity as we weather an unpredictable market and funding allocations. Next slide. So for program alignment, first, CARB staff aim to implement 2 eligibility guidelines that the board previously approved. To ensure funding gets to those who need it most, our individual mobility incentive programs have various eligibility criteria, but often don't align on how they verify these requirements. To verify income, all light-duty vehicle incentive programs should use line 9, gross income, on the 1040 tax form. There should also be clear methods for those that cannot provide tax statements. For example, for non-filers, this could include a full review of pay stubs, depending on the air district's designated procedure. To verify household size, all light-duty vehicle incentive programs should count the individual, spouse, and anyone claimed as a dependent on taxes. Next slide. Next, CARB staff proposes alignment that addresses 2 additional eligibility requirements. First, we propose that all programs use a consistent model year cutoff for scrapped vehicles. To participate in Clean Cars for All, participants must scrap an older vehicle. Currently, the various program administrators have different requirements for how old the vehicle must be. This can range from 2006 or older to 2010 or older. To decide on a standardized cutoff year, the program will require a method to target high-emitting vehicles, but also aim to be more equitable in all areas of the state. Staff proposes to set the cutoff at vehicles that are 15 years or older, which currently translates to vehicles that are 2010 model year or older. For programs that experience high demand, a needs-based approach could be implemented to address increased demand. We propose that a consistent purchase price cap be set for when participants use their incentives to buy their cleaner vehicle. Staff will work with program administrators further and compare regional data to determine an agreed-upon purchase price cap. Staff also proposes program alignment on 2 implementation issues that applicants have brought up as challenges. CARB staff sees that all parties could benefit from an aligned, approved dealer list and program closure procedures. Staff will work with program administrators toward one statewide approved dealer list and set clear program closure procedures. Next up, we have a Q&A period, so I will pass it over to my colleague, Nicole.
All right, thanks, Catherine. All right, folks, as you see, next slide, sorry. There we go. All right, we're now going to open the floor up for questions and comments about this part of the presentation. To ask a question or make a comment, select the raise hand feature on Zoom under the participants tab. If you are on your phone, just tap raise hand, which may be under the more tab. And if you're calling in by phone, please press #2 to raise your hand. Once your line is open, state your name and affiliation before speaking. And you're also welcome to email questions to the email that you see on the slide here, cleantransportationincentives@arb.ca.gov. And our email monitor will notify us of your questions, and we'll post the email address in the chat. We have until 2:28 for questions and comments. All right, so please raise your hand. So far, I am not seeing any raised hands unless I'm missing anything. Oh, here we go. All right. David Reichmuth, you're now able to unmute and provide your comments.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. I have a question about the 15-year eligibility 15-year-old eligibility requirement. I'm just wondering why CARB didn't align that with the data in MFAC or emissions data in general. We've previously found that pre-2004 vehicles have much higher emissions because they were pre-Lev 2. And so given the funding limitations, it would make sense to target that program first on vehicles that were pre-Lev 2 to get the most emissions reductions. And then if there is excess funding to look at vehicles that were in that 2004 to 2011 timeframe that you're proposing to include in the funding.
All right, Catherine or someone from the light duty team want to take that?
I could start, and then maybe if any others want to add. So right now, the cutoffs for the Clean Cars for All programs range from around, one administrator does, or a couple do 2010 or older, and then a couple do 2006 or older, and then one does, yeah, so we have 2006 or older, we have 2007 or older, 2009 or older. So they're all kind of in that range. And so to start with alignment, we're just trying to get everybody on the same page there. But for those folks, for those administrators that might have, high demand, we also want to look into kind of setting a more of a needs-based approach for that cutoff. So for example, if the cutoff was 2010 or older, and there's high demand, we could look at prioritizing the applicants with those older vehicles like we were talking about. So that is something we're going to explore because there is a lot of applicants trying to get the funding. So that's kind of why we started with 2010. But yeah, does anybody want to add anything?
Yeah, I can jump into Olivia.
Okay.
This is Lisa McCumber. I'm the branch chief for the Equitable Mobility Incentives branch. Thanks, Dave. Great to hear the comments from you. I don't think we disagree at all with the idea of looking at MFAC, and I know some of the research that you all have put out as well on this topic. I think the point we're trying to make today is that alignment is really important. And if the alignment is right now, that threshold is 15 model years, and that is guidance that's been given to us. We've got statutory, we've got regulatory kind of guidance along those lines. But there isn't anything that says we can't be more stringent in this space. And I think that's something that we want to explore in this idea of using it as a needs-based type approach. So, and then just to kind of close the record, Dave, if you can confirm for us as well, your affiliation, just so that we make sure we have that on the record, that'd be great. And in case Dave's not unmuted, Union of Concerned Scientists, I believe, is the association that you are representing.
All right, I think we can move on. So the next hand is Rob Youngren. Please state your name and affiliation. Thank you.
Hi, Rob Youngren, Sacramento Area Bike Advocates. I understand you're not addressing the e-bike incentive program as there's no additional funding for the next budgetary year being proposed. Can we get a status update on where the funding stands for that program and maybe RFP coming out, as the current contract for the program administrator should be running out here shortly?
Yeah. Hey, Rob. So for the solicitation still being reviewed internally, we don't have any updates on that. And for the project funding, we have the 3 funding years of funding, so that there's 10 million, 3 million, and 18 million. And so there is the 13 million in the grant agreement currently, and the 18 million would be for the new solicitation.
Thank you.
All right, thanks. Next we have Rich Blaustein.
Yes, thank you very much. Rich Blaustein. I'm a journalist with Climate Brief, published by the Continuing Education of the Bar of California. I just have a simple question. I hope you can help me with the background. So right now, driving clean car assistance and Clean Cars for All don't have funding. Now, could they be funded with the September budget, and that means reactivation? And are there also application processes during this time of no funding for them? Thank you.
I can start with that, and then if anyone wants to add after. So for Clean Cars for All, with the regional programs, as well as DCAP, the Driving Clean Assistance Program, the statewide program, there is funding from previous years that is still being used. So while there isn't new funding that's been allocated through this funding plan, we are still working through funding from previous years. There was also recently funding made available to 2 of the regional Clean Cars for All programs that were experiencing high demand, and so they've received more funding through a grant amendment. So most of the regional programs have funding to keep accepting applications through the next fiscal year. A few of our regional programs, have a little bit higher demand, so they can still probably accept applications through the end of this year at least. So while there is no new funding right now, we're still working through funding from previous years, and the programs are open to new applicants at this time. So yeah, I think that
Great.
answered.
Thanks, Olivia.
Yeah,
All right.
I'll just jump in
Oh,
real
go
quick, Nicole, too. Sorry. And thanks, Olivia. I just wanted to mention the part of the question about could the programs receive funding through the September budget negotiations? Yes, any of our incentive programs, projects could receive funding depending on what happens with the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund budget discussions that are happening now. But we don't know where things will land. Thanks.
Thanks, Steph. All right, last hand we have up is Chris Chavez.
Yes, thank
Please.
you. Chris Chavez, Deputy Policy Director at Coalition for Clean Air. A comment and then I guess a couple questions. So just following up with the comment from Union Concerned Scientists, on the model year, I do think that there is something to be said there as far as ensuring or making sure that we are getting those older pre-Lev 2 vehicles off the road sooner. You do see those still quite frequently on the road, particularly in communities that need programs like Clean Cars for All the most. So I do want to emphasize that the need to really get rid of those vehicles. I guess I'm curious when you say that you what you see kind of like prioritizing as a needs-based approach. Could you explain on that more? Because needs-based is more of a socioeconomic thing rather than like a administrative priority. So I'm not really sure what you mean by that. Could you explain that more?
Sure, Chris, this is Lisa McCumber again. What we mean by that is yes, you are right. Typically when we're doing a means test, that's typically looking at someone's income, but we also do look at geographic regions as well. We look at whether or not somebody lives within a disadvantaged community or a low income community designated by CalEnviroScreen. And there are other methods that we think could be incorporated in that. For example, somebody comes in with a 90s model vehicle, and somebody comes in with a 2008 model vehicle, and that 90s model vehicle is certainly higher emitting. I think that an argument could be made that getting rid of this older, less efficient, higher emitting vehicle is of a higher need than the person maybe getting rid of the 2008. Not that we wouldn't also want, 2008 qualifies in the program right now as base. But that's my point, is there are lots of ways that we can look at this to make sure that we're prioritizing consumers, yes, from an income means, also from disadvantaged means, also from potentially what the vehicle, the emissions benefit needs are as well. So that's what I was trying to explain.
Okay. Got it. I think certainly if this is the approach that CARB is going to require, making that clear that there is a prioritization for older vehicles would be helpful, just in terms of like consumer awareness and what message is getting to the consumer. The other question I had is relating to, I know that there's some broader proposals relating to alignment. I know the original intent of SB 459 by my old boss, Senator Pavley, had really the kind of what was the genesis of the Clean Cars for All program in many ways is really focused on air district flexibility for the implementing air districts. Do you in designing this sort of alignment, what are some of the things that the district still would have control over in terms of how they implement the Clean Cars for All programs locally?
That's a great question, and I'm not sure, team. I'm not sure if I've got folks on today that can answer that in detail. Chris, can we follow back up with you on this one?
Sure, absolutely.
Great, thank you. And just so that we're clear for folks today too, what we're looking for, we are really hoping to get your feedback on how we should structure these things. If when it comes to the older vehicles, for example, if the preference from you all is that we really consider setting a different minimum threshold, and then from there think about how we prioritize the oldest vehicles, right? Like what we're looking for is feedback in these areas. And so please don't hold back, folks. We need input here to figure out what the right and most appropriate direction is to go.
All right, thanks. We did have another hand pop up. Brian Yepes. Please state your name and affiliation.
Yes, thank you. Hi, I'm new to this. My name is Brian Yepes. I'm the Clean Mobility Coordinator with the Hopland Band of Pomo Indians. So I'm coming from a tribal perspective, so I could take this offline or through an email. But I just wanted to find out what, with the 58 counties we have in California, tribes reside in 34 of those counties, most of them being very rural. It would be nice for tribes to collectively start to come together and work with the county and the state to try to help reduce the greenhouse gas emissions in those areas. And I'm just wondering if there's possibly I've been on other boards and worked with the state to have certain tribal set-asides, not to take money out of other people's pockets. I know these are valuable dollars, but has the state or CARB considered looking at a possible set-aside for tribes specifically, or are we competing in the overall budget? And then I was just curious, back to the e-bike. I know that's kind of a moot issue now, but those types of programs would work well. We live about 15 miles from our nearest town, and many people are going up 2 and 3 times a day just to pick up certain things. And if we had an e-bike program of sort, it would be great for them to be able to not have to make that many trips, or even going just 5 miles down into our local small town. But mainly the question is just, is there a specific set aside for tribes specifically, or are we competing with the same dollars?
Hi, Brian. I'll start, and then I think maybe Ava will jump in. But I think it varies per program, but I can say at large we do have requirements to reserve funds or focus on disadvantaged communities, which includes tribes. And so in some cases that looks like a set aside, and sometimes just looks like spending requirements that happen au naturel. But I'll let Ava speak to the tribal set asides within her program, and if others want to pipe in for your program specific information, please do on the light duty side, and we can talk heavy duty during that part of the presentation.
Thank you.
Sure. Brian, thank you for your comment. Yeah, I just wanted to mention that we did have a guaranteed set-aside funding within Clean Mobility Options Program in both windows of applications that happened in 2020 and as well as 2023. So we didn't want tribal governments to compete with other applicants. All the funding were open to tribes, but in addition to the set-asides that we had for them, and I'm happy to say that we got more than 5 or 6 projects now going on in different tribal communities, and also a few community transportation needs assessment out of that set-aside.
Thanks. And one thing I'll add is I do think another element is some programs like mine, we provide plus ups for disadvantaged communities. So I do think it's program specific. Tiffany might have more to add, but if you did want to reach out, we can kind of walk it through project by project as we have so many. But Tiffany, if you wanted to add anything, feel free.
No, Nicole, so I just kind of wanted to address maybe some for the vehicle purchase incentive side. So on top of what Ava had mentioned, so for DCAS specifically, we do have, again, through the needs-based process, tribes and indigenous populations would be considered as tier 1 populations. And so while it's not specifically like a set aside, but it does, that sort of classification does factor into kind of the determination in the needs-based process. So again, to Nicole's point, a lot of these are very specific to program to program, but I will say that at least for DCAP specific, that is kind of how we've started. Like I said, it's not particularly like a tribal set aside, but those are some of the ways that we're prioritizing tribal and indigenous populations.
Good, thank you.
Right, thanks. But yeah, welcome to that follow-up conversation. All right, I think that was the last hand we have for this section. So Steph, would you like to take it from here?
Nicole. Yeah, we can go to the next slide, please. So just, yeah, like Nicole, I think said, thanks for the questions and comments. And before I hand it off to Ava to lead our discussion on the community mobility incentive projects, we forgot to throw in the community survey link earlier. And so I just put that in there now. All right, we can go to the next slide and I'll hand things over to Ava.
Thank you, Stephanie. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ava Yakubi-Rad. I am the lead staff for our Clean Mobility Options Program. Today, I will discuss CARB's suite of community mobility incentive projects, formerly referred to in the state budget as the Sustainable Community-Based Transportation Equity Incentive Project. This figure outlines the various community mobility projects. This includes our regional and the statewide clean mobility options, clean mobility in schools, and planning and capacity building program, as well as sustainable transportation equity project. These mobility projects have not been allocated any funds in the fiscal year 2025-26 budget. Regional clean mobility options or they are under CMO. They were the first 7 initial pilot projects that provided shared mobility services in disadvantaged and low-income communities. The pilots have helped CARB gain valuable insights into the clean mobility landscape. Statewide clean mobility options was created following these initial pilots. And they were provided funds for small-scale shared mobility projects as well as community transportation needs assessment. Another program, Clean Mobility in Schools, supports clean transportation, air quality improvements, and education projects at K-12 public schools. The other program, Sustainable Transportation Equity Project, or STEP, funds complementary investment to expand mobility choices and reduce vehicles miles traveled in response to community identified priorities that may include transit, active transportation infrastructure, workforce development, and other activities. Lastly, planning and capacity building program. These are community-led planning projects that include dedicated, localized technical assistance too. Next slide, please. So while the clean mobility options or CMO hasn't been allocated funding for this fiscal year, staff has some draft policy changes and updates to share with you and get your feedback on today. These updates would improve how these CMO projects within the larger suite of clean mobility programs are funded. First, we wanted to recommend that we increase the grant amount beyond the 1.8 million cap that is currently existed. Second, we want to shift from first come, first serve basis to needs-based model. And because we've heard from stakeholders and communities that they need to know how we are prioritizing investments to fill gaps in access to clean transportation for tribes, rural communities, and Black and other communities of color. Third, we want to clarify that project areas should include at least 51% of census tracts within low income or disadvantaged communities and not necessarily 100% in those communities. And lastly, we want to extend the grant term beyond 5 years to give projects more time to launch and operate effectively. Next slide, please. So for clean mobility in schools, uh, as as I mentioned before, there is no proposed funding for this year. However, we want to share some draft policy update with you and get your feedback about. We want to refine how we evaluate student population and demographic criteria to ensure that we're reaching more underserved students in low income and disadvantaged communities. Additionally, moving forward, we have begun to explore how to expand the concept of clean mobility in schools to additional public schools throughout the state. We want to use lessons learned and create models for this expansion. And this would include focusing planning grants for a higher number of schools this year. Next slide, please. The Sustainable Transportation Equity Project, or STEP, does not have any proposed funding this year either. As we indicated at the last workshop in our work groups, we're not proposing any policy changes to STEP at this time. However, we want to let you know that we would like to refine our program priorities for a future grant solicitation. This is again based on grantees' feedback and analysis of past applications and outreach to interested parties. STEP will continue to support existing grantees and improve administrative processes. Next slide. On this slide, we will share a quick update on planning and capacity building program and what's coming up next. As with the other sustainable community mobility project, there's no new funding proposed in the current budget for this program. But while there are no major policy changes planned for projects already on their way, looking ahead, we plan to release a new request for applications, or RFA, this fall with funding available from previous fiscal years. Our priorities for this round of RFA include welcoming first-time applicants with a special focus on tribal and rural communities to help build the capacity. We'll also prioritize schools, public schools that are planning their deployment to zero emission transportation and working to support under-resourced students. Finally, if we receive more applications than available funding, we will use any additional future funds to support eligible projects from this round of RFA, so more communities can benefit over time. And that's it for my part of a presentation. Back to you, Nicole, I believe, or Stephanie.
Yep. Thanks so much. All right, folks. Well, can we move to the next slide? Thank you. All right, so once more, if you'd like to make any questions or comments about this part of the presentation, please select the raise hand feature on Zoom under the participants tab. If you are on the Zoom mobile app, please tap raise hand in the more tab. And if you are calling in by phone, please press #2 to raise your hand. Once your line is open, please remember to state both your name and affiliation before speaking. And once again, you can also email questions at the email you see on the slide here, cleantransportationincentives@arb.ca.gov. We have up until 2:33 p.m. for questions and comments. All right, give folks, here we go. So first person is Robina Suwal.
Hi. Thank you very much for the presentation. I'm not sure why there's this echo, but could you please keep me informed of any discussion on school incentives? Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Rabina. If someone wants to make sure we jot down Rabina's name in case we need to follow up via email, please do so on the school best or on the school incentives team. All right, that was the only hand up. I'll wait for, another moment or so. If anyone's feeling shy, and no emails have come in. All right, Steph, you want to keep us moving?
Yeah, thanks, Nicole. And so, yes, we did have until like 2:35 for this segment. But since there aren't any other questions as of yet, we'll go ahead and move on to our break. So Zubair, you could move on to the next slide. And while it does say to return at 2:40 p.m., it's now 2 o'clock, And so go ahead and take a 5-minute break to, stretch, look away from the monitor, or take care of your other needs. And we'll come back at 2:05 p.m. Thanks, everybody. All right, everyone. I hope you had a good, quick little break there. And we'll go ahead and get started with the next portion of our meeting. Zubair, if you're back on, if we can advance to the next slide, please. Great, thank you. Okay, this portion of our discussion will focus on our medium and heavy duty on-road vehicles and off-road equipment incentive projects. I'll hand things over to my colleague, Matt, to present on this topic. Matt?
Thank you, Stephanie. For this portion of our presentation, we'll focus on our medium and heavy duty on and off-road vehicle and equipment incentive projects. My name is Matt Williams, and I'm an air pollution specialist at CARB, and I'll be presenting on these medium and heavy duty investments. Next slide, please. Overall, our medium and heavy duty on and off-road equipment investments strive to improve air quality and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. To continue to build on efforts to ensure investments support our equity goals, strategically focus on priority populations by expanding support for small businesses, public agencies, and disadvantaged communities, focus on reducing barriers for small fleets through financial and non-financial mechanisms, and collaborate with community partners, air districts, and other state and local agencies. Next slide. Much like our individual and community mobility incentive projects, these projects have typically focused on bringing cleaner technologies to the heavy-duty sector and supporting the state's air quality and climate change goals. All these projects work together. Shift, demonstration, and pilot projects advance technology and prepare early markets. Voucher incentives reduce the purchase price of commercial options. Truck loans help under-resourced businesses acquire clean technologies, and supporting services like Cal Fleet Advisor help fleets deploy successfully. All of the projects you see here include support for small fleets and businesses, with the Zero Emission Truck Loan Pilot and ISEF designed specifically to help meet their unique needs. Next slide. The Heavy Duty Investment Strategy is CARB's long-term guidance document for clean transportation incentives funding, that being from low carbon transportation investments and the Air Quality Improvement Program. It covers 3 fiscal years, beginning with the upcoming budget year, and is updated annually. The strategy serves as a roadmap showing how state incentives can help spark private sector investment and create partnerships necessary to support the acceleration of clean technology advancement and market deployment in the heavy-duty on- and off-road sectors. It identifies key priority areas for investment that will help maintain market momentum to reduce emissions from the heavy-duty space. Each year, the Heavy-Duty Investment Strategy document includes several key elements. This year's document will include an updated discussion of how our incentives drive technology advancement and market adoption of clean heavy-duty technologies that will allow the state to meet its climate and air quality goals. Updates on the current status of clean heavy-duty vehicle and equipment technologies and their respective markets, ways to report on the metrics of investment success, an updated 3-year set of recommendations for heavy-duty vehicle and off-road investments, the ways CARB is focusing investments on the communities and small businesses in greatest need of assistance, and an annual report on the progress we've made towards cleaning up the state's school bus fleet. Next slide. A principal product of the heavy-duty investment strategy, the 3-year investment priorities table details our recommendations for low-carbon transportation investments beginning next fiscal year and organized by the aims of our projects, those being the demonstration of pre-commercial technology and scaled pilot deployments of early commercial technology, programs designed to accelerate broad market adoption and equity projects helping small fleets and priority populations access the cleanest technology. The table is intended to show our top priorities and is not exhaustive of all the types of projects we would or intend to fund given sufficient resources. In the interest of space, we're unable to include everything. So even if something you expect to see isn't in the table, it doesn't mean that it's not a category of interest to CARB. With the new fiscal year now added to the table for fiscal year 2028-29, staff has worked with internal experts and industry advisors to develop proposed project category priorities. We also made a couple updates to the fiscal year 2026-27 and 27-28 columns from last year's document. Some priorities guiding this year's update include building market momentum with high volume deployments of zero emission medium and heavy duty trucks, ensuring equitable access to and disbursement of public funds, and shifting pre-commercial project focus to demanding applications like ocean-going vessels and aviation. I'll give you some time to look over the table while I point out some highlights. The new third year is characterized by the narrowing of scope as more technologies graduate out of our incentive programs and we focus on demanding platforms, continued large volume commercial deployment, and equity. As with last year, we're using the AT abbreviation, which stands for Advanced Technology, before these most challenging applications to represent non-zero emission solutions. AT represents true stepping stones to zero emission in demanding applications, not just cleaner combustion, renewable fuels, or conventional hybrids. Some examples include hydrogen turbine hybrids in aviation, zero emission capable hybrids in marine, and other solutions we're hoping to learn more about. Zero emission, hydrogen, and off-road ecosystem projects will continue progress on a variety of platforms, interconnected systems, and practices, and continued exploration of secondary market support and financing and insurance assistance for small fleets. We'd love to get your thoughts on our proposed priorities and the other changes I've mentioned when we get to the questions section. Next slide. The Clean Truck and Bus Voucher Incentive Project, better known as HVIP, provides cash on the hood incentives to incentivize fleets to adopt zero emission vehicles. The funding that we've proposed this year is $25 million from the Air Pollution Control Fund for HVIP transit set aside, $95 million also from the Air Pollution Control Fund for HVIP standard trucks. And we have some draft policy changes, including developing a 3-year declining voucher amount and manufacturer suggested retail price cap. We're considering total cost of ownership and setting voucher amounts, assessing potential changes to public transit bus voucher amounts, exploring public fleet voucher incentive structure and criteria, establishing CARB truck testing requirements for HVIP vehicle eligibility, and considering developing manufacturer eligibility criteria. The current Clean Truck and Bus Voucher Incentive Project funding plan proposal includes, again, that $25 million from APCF for transit buses and $95 million for HVIP standard. Those allocations come from the Hino settlement. These proposed funding levels are based on current demand and project need, with the goal of supporting market stability and encouraging continued adoption of zero-emission vehicles across both sectors. Next slide, please. The Innovative Small E-Fleet Pilot Project, or ISEF for short, is a set-aside within the Clean Truck and Bus Voucher Incentive Project, or HVIP, designed to support small fleets and individual owner-operators in accessing zero-emission vehicles through innovative solutions such as all-inclusive leases, truck-as-a-service agreements, short-term rentals, and other creative support mechanisms. For the upcoming funding plan, staff is not proposing policy changes. However, staff proposes to allocate $5 million from the Air Pollution Control Fund appropriation to continue to support innovative projects. Over the past year, staff explored solutions to challenges small fleets face in adopting zero-emission vehicles, including access to insurance for heavy-duty zero-emission vehicles and post-adoption fleet management support. Staff will continue exploring the potential design of a used truck voucher pilot concept, building on existing ISEF solutions. A work group on these concepts was held on June 13th. A used vehicle voucher program could help lower vehicle costs, expand supply, and provide CARB with insights to guide future policies. Consumer protection will be prioritized by implementing oversight of vehicle pricing and establishing minimum standards for warranties and certifications. Additionally, insurance assistance and ongoing fleet management would help fleets integrate these vehicles successfully. Staff anticipates further collaboration with industry experts and stakeholder management engagement over the next 1 to 2 years to develop and implement the new options. Next slide. Next, I'll cover clean off-road equipment, or CORE. We're proposing $31 million in funding through the Air Quality Improvement Program. For policy updates, we're looking at a few key changes. First, we're considering reintroducing higher weight capacity terminal tractors, which operate at ports and rail yards, specifically those over 81,000 pounds gross vehicle weight rating for fiscal year 2025-26. These units are critical for port and rail operations, and we've heard strong stakeholder support for bringing them into the program. Additionally, we're proposing to allow larger operators and nonprofits as eligible purchasers. Regarding nonprofits, they were unintentionally excluded last year, and we want to correct that for the upcoming cycle. Additionally, we received consistent feedback during both our May 30th and July 22nd public work groups, urging us to open the program to larger operators. We recognize that while the small business requirement aims to protect vulnerable fleets, it may also be unintentionally excluding markets that could deliver meaningful air quality improvements, particularly near priority populations and freight corridors. We're working to balance our market transformation goals with small business protections and are exploring options like set-asides and maintaining voucher enhancements for small fleets. Next slide. Sustainable Heavy-Duty Initiatives for Future Technology, or SHIFT, was established in 2009, originally called the Advanced Technology Demonstration and Pilot Program. The goal of the program is to accelerate the adoption of pre-commercial technologies into the marketplace and to support commercialized technologies that would benefit from at-scale pilot projects to showcase technical feasibility and economic viability. We're in the early stages of implementing 12 new projects from funding allocated to SHIFT in previous years. In 2023, CARB onboarded a third-party administrator, EPRI, who is facilitating administrative activities to support the CARB project liaisons and grantees with implementation of these projects. Next slide. While SHIFT has not received funding for new projects this fiscal year, implementation of these previously funded projects will continue through at least 2027. The additional funds will facilitate third-party administrator work for at least one additional year, allowing EPRI to continue assisting CARB through the implementation period for all new projects. Next slide, and I think I'll hand it over for questions.
All right, thanks, Matt. Okay. All right, so folks, same deal. We'll open the floor for questions and comments about this part of the presentation. To ask a question or make a comment, please select the raise hand feature on Zoom under the participants tab. If you are on the Zoom mobile app, please tap raise hand under the more tab. And if you're calling in, please press #2 to raise your hand. Once line is open, please state your name and affiliation before speaking, and you're also welcome to email questions at the email you see on the slide, clean transportation incentives at arb.ca.gov. We will have until 3:03 for questions and comments. So we will start with Marissa Brown.
Hi, good afternoon, folks. Marissa Brown with the Green Lining Institute. I have a question. It's just two questions to clarify. So for SHIFT, just to clarify, it is not receiving any money in the budget, but the $2 million is from previous years. And then the second question is about the community survey. Is CARB doing any targeted outreach to groups to get that survey to them? Thank you.
I will answer the first question about Shift, and then I will hunt the question on the community survey. For Shift, the $2 million that is proposed in this year's funding plan is from this year's appropriation from the Air Quality Improvement Program, and it is only for the third-party administrator. It won't be used for a new solicitation for projects. So there's no new funding for projects. The $2 million is just for the administrator, but we have existing projects that are already encumbered under agreement and in implementation, or will be beginning implementation very soon, that $2 million will support in the future. Does that answer that question?
Yes, thank you. And then just the second question for anybody here who can answer that one.
Yeah, I can jump in on that one. Hopefully you can see me. I've turned on my camera, but I'm not seeing myself.
We can see you.
Great, thanks. So yeah, as far as the community survey, we've been announcing it at different public meetings that we've held. And then also we've gotten the information out to our Clean Transportation Regional Outreach Coordinators. And so we have 3 people that cover the whole state on kind of the medium heavy duty side. And then we have 2 people that cover the more kind of light duty and community side of things. And then we also have someone that covers tribes. And so they are all reaching out to their networks to make sure that everybody knows about that. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, are you able to share who the medium and heavy duty coordinators are?
Oh, yes. So we have Noemi Vitella. I don't know off the top of my head who handles what portion of California. And then we have Michael Sidhu. Hopefully, Michael, I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. And then the other one is Boons. I'm probably going to butcher this too, but Bethavong. Those are the 3 coordinators on the medium and heavy duty side. And then we also have Larry Riera. That one's always hard for me. He sort of helps to kind of oversee that whole outreach effort. And then for anybody that's interested on the kind of light duty community side, or I should say individual and community mobility side, to try to use the new words, we have Adelina Paez and Arvin Ocampo. And Adelina also serves as our tribal liaison within the Mobile Source Control Division, which is separate but like in complement with Laura Morgan, who works in our Office of Environmental Justice and I always forget exactly how it works, Tribal and Border Relations Office. And so she's helping to oversee tribal efforts for all of CARB.
And Marissa, I think there's a lot of names. So if you you can also feel free to email that Clean Transportation Incentives at ARB.ca.gov email with the same question, and maybe we can provide those names and contact info so that you can not have to watch this recording over and over to get those.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right. Next is Adrian Martinez.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. This is Adrian Martinez with Earth Justice, based down here in Los Angeles. I had a couple questions, particularly around HVIP. It's my understanding that there will be a new round of HVIP related to vouchers that weren't used. And so I was wondering, it was my understanding that that was going to be incorporated into this funding plan, but I just wanted to confirm if what's happening with that and kind of where those are. And then in light of that, I was wondering whether it's this workshop or at some point, CARB could provide a breakdown of, how many of those vouchers were for hydrogen fuel cell trucks versus battery electric or other technologies, just so that we can get a sense of what's happening in that space. We remain concerned. We're hearing that a lot of hydrogen trucks aren't proceeding. We remain concerned that it's locking up a lot of this funding that could be used for vehicles that could be deployed sooner. So that's uh, my my question related to that. And then, just wanted to also express support for, the funding of core, which is really important. These larger vehicles are critical to get to zero emission. So we're appreciative that you're allocating money, and we wish there were more to allocate for core, but I just wanted to, mention our support for that. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, here, give me just a moment. Here you go. Try now, Young. Inder, I see you're a co-host. Are you able to maybe address the question? I did just ask you to unmute, Young, but your sound's not coming through, so I'm not sure what's going on.
Yeah, I can't.
Oh, yes, we can hear you. Nope, we can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay. I'll let Young answer unless you want. Okay. The first question was about HVIP funding plan amounts, and then vouchers that have been unredeemed and kind of a natural attrition rate over time. So a couple things. First, I want to just update that the 24-25 HVIP implementation manual was just released today. And that the relaunch date for HVIP is going to be September 9th. So if you haven't received that information, that should be distributed, and you should mark those dates. As far as there's like three questions in there. So the first part of the question is the funding plan amount money that Matt was referring to today, the Hino settlement money, that will not be available until after probably sometime next year. Because these are the proposed amounts. We still need to get our board approval when we go to our board. So that's in the November timeframe. So the unredeemed vouchers or canceled vouchers, and that we've spoken about at our previous two work group meetings. That amount is fluid, but we're thinking it's going to be in about the $200 million range. And that's fluid because of things we've mentioned before, things like the Nikola bankruptcy. What we've done, those are hydrogen fuel cell vehicles and also BEV vehicles. But what we've done there is to give an opportunity for those fleets that have existing vouchers an opportunity to choose another type of vehicle. And those fleets have been contacted through surveys. So I'll stop there for question one. I think that answers it. And then question two, well, I'll go to question three on core. So since Nicole is on, I think we appreciate that comment. We have limited funds and it's not nearly enough to cover all the equipment categories. Nicole, did you want to add something more to his third question?
Nope, I think that was more of a comment. Just appreciate the feedback and your support for the program.
Okay.
All right.
And I forgot what the second question was.
I think there was a question about whether or not fuel cell funds will maybe be funds that had been available for fuel cell trucks will be available for battery electric if there are issues there or something along those lines. But I'll kick it to the HVIP team to address.
Thank you. So that increase, yeah, we can help you get data for that, and we'll gather your information and then get back to you.
Okay, great. All right, next we have Tom Van Heek. Name and affiliation, please.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Tom Van Heek, Senior Policy Advisor at Rivian Automotive. Thanks for the chance to ask a question. I noticed discussion of several draft policy changes with respect to HVIP. some of which would represent fairly significant departures from past practice, and or sort of thinking ahead about how we can be constructive in offering feedback to you all on some of those notions. And so I guess the question I have is, do these remain sort of conceptual at this stage, or are there any more specifics the staff can share at this stage about exactly what a new voucher amount might look like, and sort of how an MSRP cap might be designed, and so on? The more specifics we have, the more we can offer, hopefully, specific and constructive feedback to you all.
I can take that one, Nicole. We are holding a workshop. It's tentatively scheduled for September 9th to discuss the MSRP cap and some of the other proposal regarding eligibility and OEM testing and so forth. And so that workshop will be kind of geared towards that and presenting some possible options there. As far as the voucher amounts, what we released today in the IM is what's going to be used for the current redeployment of money. When in terms of the funding plan, what we're proposing is to look more in depthly at what happens in the next couple months in terms of uptake and market conditions, and looking at doing a reanalysis of that to see where the voucher amounts are. But that's also what we're kind of looking for feedback and analyzing. So all of these are great opportunities for folks to present feedback back to us. You can definitely reach out to us directly, set up some time, but we'll also have that work group that's just specific for HFIP in September as another opportunity to discuss and present more information.
All right, thanks. Next, we have Michael Pimentel.
Yeah, hi folks. Thanks for the opportunity to ask some questions. I think the first question I had addressed by some of the response already relative to the reopening of HFIP and capacity that will be made available there. So I'll take that as satisfied for today. Second question I have, though, relates to HFIP, transit set aside, and the consideration of voucher amounts. Under that set aside, there was acknowledgement that there may be reevaluation of voucher amounts, and I'm curious in learning more about what factors may be taken into consideration in any changes there, and if there is general or high-level ideas on what that new voucher amount may become. Part of the interest that I have here is something we've been broadcasting as an industry for some time, which is a constant increase in bus purchase costs for our agencies. The fact that the purchasing power of the HFIP voucher has declined over time, and so wanting to see that buoyed so we can at least have historic levels of incremental cost covered by HFIP. Additionally, I did want to continue to elevate that one of the things that we've had for reducing the incremental cost of zero emission buses, and that's the partial sales and use tax exemption for zero emission buses, will expire at the end of this calendar year. And so that will constitute an almost 5% increase in the bus purchase cost for agencies. And given the legislature elected not to extend that, that may be something that the administration and CARB look to address through a further plus up in the HFIP voucher. And so I'll stop there and just see if there are any responses to what may be contemplated for the voucher amount for transit moving forward.
Yeah, thanks for that question. So what I'll start with is that I've been coordinating with our ICT regulation team, Yachin. I don't know if she's on this call today. I don't think so. But so we're having conversations, and I recognize some of those points that you've been mentioning with the no funding going on, and the increases we're seeing in the marketplace. So at the moment, what we're doing is definitely want to engage you all in getting those feedback. I don't have any specific proposals right now. I mean, I think for this upcoming year, what we have right now on the September 9th date, we are not increasing those voucher amounts, but for this following year, that's something that we mentioned with these work group meetings with industry stakeholders that we will be looking at them by class and by vocation. So if Anne Marie or Yachun, if they are here, if they want to add something to that, or we can get back to you too. Okay, I don't think they're available today, but
All right. Okay. I just tried to unmute you, Anne Marie, if you did have anything to add.
Sorry. Yeah,
Oh, no,
Mike,
no worries.
we are working very closely with the team, and you know, Yachun is very knowledgeable about the situation with the transit bus prices, and you know that the low no funding has gone away, and also the tax exemption. So we will be reaching out to you to talk about this a little bit more. But yeah, we're actively involved in seeing how we can support transit.
Great, thanks. All right, next we have Christian Corby. Please state your name and affiliation.
Hello, everyone. My name is Christian Corby, and I'm the Deputy Director at the California Electric Transportation Coalition, or CalETC. Thank you all very much for presenting on all this great information, both light duty and medium and heavy duty incentives. My comments are on the medium and heavy duty incentives, and I wanted to start off by really thanking CARB staff, Inder and Young and Matt. Thank you guys very much for all the hard work you did on getting out the new implementation manual and your decision to increase the voucher amounts. We are very grateful and definitely support that decision. And I'm hopeful that that's able to buoy the medium and heavy duty market through the end of this year and into next year. And then we definitely support the developing some declining voucher amounts over time. I think right now we would caution against MSRP caps. The cost of these trucks is fairly unknown right now, given the implementation of the new tariffs. And I think it may be premature to implement MSRP caps at this time. However, I think opening a discussion up around it and kind of informing ourselves on what that might do to the market could be useful. Definitely support considering the total cost of ownership, and I would recommend including in that all of the federal excise taxes and sales taxes that are included at the time of purchase. Also increased insurance costs. And then I'd also like to offer that the utilities do a lot of work on the TCO analysis for fleets as well. So I'd be happy to lean in on that and try to get some good information going to inform that discussion as well. And then also very much in support of a public fleet voucher incentive structure. Those fleets that are subject to the Advanced Clean Fleets rule are definitely going to need some assistance in purchasing these trucks. So would definitely support that. And then just one last piece was on the testing requirements. We're very interested in what that might look like, and would encourage CARB to consider a way for established OEMs that have delivered volumes of trucks through HVIP to be exempted from that process, or a way for them to kind of do a one-time certification and then be able to not have to comply with that. I think the only concern there is just creating a bottleneck for slowing down the deployment of these trucks. That's just the main concern there. So yeah, thank you very much, and really appreciate everyone's hard work on this.
All right, thanks, Christian. Next we have Tim McRae.
Hi, thank you. So I'm Tim McRae. I'm with the California Hydrogen Business Council, and I just have a couple things I want to clarify. We've been working with Inder and Peter and Young on several aspects of the HVIP program, and our feedback, it sounds like, is being heard, so we really appreciate that. I wanted to clarify that to understand that the levels of vouchers will stay the same from last year to this year. I understand you may consider a declining 3-year voucher amount, but that for this year they stay the same. So I wanted to see that clarified. I had a question about the MSRP cap, but it looks like I get to find out more at September 9th. So I'll put that on my calendar, and I look forward to that workshop. And then I also wanted to clarify for HVIP, it sounds like what you've proposed in the $125 million for what's going to go on the November board meeting, a divvying up of HVIP funds that is from the Hino settlement. And then it sounds like in addition to that, you're looking at $200 million or so from unused vouchers. So I wanted to clarify that that is in addition to the 125. And also just to ask, is any of that additional 200 million, the unused voucher money, going to be dedicated just for transit? Those are my questions and clarifications. Thanks again for your work on this.
Jim, thanks for that question. So for the September 9th launch date, that's the unredeemed vouchers and canceled vouchers. That is the amount of money that, as I mentioned, it's fluid, but we're thinking it's going to be about 200 million. That will be available of that money from those cancellations. So if there was a cancellation of a voucher that was from transit set aside, it would go back to transit set aside. If it was from ISEF, it would go back to ISEF, public school bus, and so on. Now, the Hino money, that will not be available until next, probably sometime next year after we fully execute our grant. So, and then that involves some other additional steps too. So that help with the difference between the two?
Yeah, I think that does help, particularly on how the unused vouchers work. But and then just to clarify that the current levels of support for vouchers will stay the same, right?
Right. So we did make some adjustments. I think across the board, we used our new, we did a revised TCO methodology analysis that we've discussed in those medium heavy duty work group meetings. So that has led us to where we are. There was one class that I think is reduced. And I think that's a class 3, that the vouchers are different and reduced from last year.
Okay, thanks. All right, the last hand up, we have Terry Means.
Hi, thank you very much. This is Terry Mannies. I'm with Orange EV. And first of all, I just really, along with everyone else, wanted to thank you, Matt and Inder and the whole team. We really appreciate the work that you've done. And I would just like to reiterate that Orange EV is very pleased to see that you are considering adding the higher weight terminal tractors back into rail and port. We understand how important it is for small operators to have access to these very important funds in core, and we really do appreciate that in this case, the only way to make traction in the ports on behalf of near-side port communities is to use to provide vouchers for larger operators. So we really do appreciate your thought process on that, and Orange EV is here anytime you folks have questions about those higher weight terminal tractors. So thank you very much for all your efforts.
Thanks, Terry. Appreciate it. All right, next, we did have another hand pop up. We have Emily Stevens.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
You're a little faint, but we can, I think, hear you all right.
I've been having computer issues. So my question is just confirmation. Just to begin, I'm Emily Stevens from TRC. And super glad to see the HVIP implementation manual release. We've been waiting for that one. So thank you guys so much. Just to confirm, it was September 9th that it will be released. My computer was glitching. And then if you could confirm how much funding will be released when it opens, that would be great. Thank you so much.
Emily, it's September 9th, as I mentioned, so we don't have a final number yet. But it should be around the $200 million range, could be more. Part of that I mentioned is that with the Nikola vouchers, you're getting an opportunity for those fleets to have the ability to find an alternative rather than just cancel those vouchers and have them have to go through the process again.
All right, and it sounds like we haven't received any questions via email. So I think this concludes our questions for anything heavy duty related.
Thanks, Nicole. So we can move on to the next portion of our meeting. If Zubair, you could advance the slide. Oh yes, I forgot we have this open discussion. Yes, so I guess Nicole, I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you just wanted to cover it or not, but yeah, hi folks. So now I guess we're opening the discussion up to anything that you want to bring up that is funding plan related. So once again, raise your hand on Zoom, press #2 if you're on your phone. We'll give it just a minute or two to see if folks have any questions that were related to any of the other presentations at the start or funding plan related information. Oh, all right. We have Brian Yepes.
Yes, thank you again. I appreciate it. This is a great informative talk. Again, Brian Yepes with the Hopland Band of Pomo Indians, I'm the Clean Mobility Coordinator. I was just curious if if there's any overlap between other state agencies. So tribes in California use GSA, the General Services Administration, to get auctioned off vehicles, government plates and whatnot. And although I do, when I go on there, I do see that there are definitely different alternatives for vehicles like light or low, I guess, electric and alternative fuel types. But is there an effort to have more available electric vehicles for tribes to acquire and purchase through the GSA?
So this is Lisa McCumber. I probably take that, although I don't have a great answer for you. We don't work directly on what ends up within the GSA. We do work with Caltrans, and we do communicate with them often about about electric vehicles and so forth on the lists. But with regard to how they structure the lists and how folks can access them, unfortunately, that doesn't fall within our purview. But Brian, my team, we will be reaching out to you. And so I'll just make a note to my team now to make sure that when we follow up with you, that we also will reach out to Caltrans and folks and make sure that you're connected with the right people there so that we can get your question answered.
Great. Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, of course.
All right, and next we have Rich Blaustein.
Yes, thank you very much for this very informative webinar. My name is Rich Blaustein. I'm a journalist. I'm with Climate Brief, which is published by the Continuing Education, the Bar of California. I just have a couple of questions on how this session connects with future events. So if I'm correct, there's also a webinar on August 19th. That's Tuesday, on clean transportation incentives. And is that sort of like the wrap up for all these summer workshops? And then I have a question about what will go into the draft funding plan presented to the board in November. So that will be funding, but will it also include the policy changes you've talked about, and also things like long-term heavy-duty investment strategy? So just what will be presented in November to the board too? Thank you.
Well, I guess I'll note that typically when we get questions from journalists, we do direct you to our comms team, but I can at least provide some information on the fact that the August 19th is I think you're just referencing our evening community meeting. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
So that, Stephanie or Adelina, feel free to jump in, but that's essentially our attempts to make sure that we're being as inclusive as possible. We recognize some people are working during the day, and so we want to make sure that we have time to cover these types of workshops for community members and folks who might not be able to tune in during, the 9 to 5. But Steph or Adelina, I don't know if you have anything to add to that. No? Okay.
Hi, can you hear
Oh,
me?
go ahead. Yes. Yep.
Hi, I just wanted to hop on and introduce myself really quick. I don't really have much to add, but yes, community members are more than welcome to attend the evening community meetings. They're structured specifically for those types of folks. And if any nonprofits or other organizations want to attend just to listen in and see what kind of feedback or information we're giving or getting from the communities, you're all more than welcome to attend as well. And I just wanted to hop on and say hi, Brian Yepes. I will be reaching out to you. I am the tribal coordinator for the Mobile Source Control Division and work really closely with Lauda, which I'm sure you've probably already met before. So I'll be reaching out. Okay. All right. Hop off.
Thanks, Adelina. And Brian, for the rest of your questions, if you don't mind, reaching out to our comms office so that they can get back to you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, and I can offer really quick as well. This is Lisa McCumber, that yes, our funding plan will cover both where the funding lands and what the policy recommendations are. So you can expect to see both things included within the funding plan.
Thank you.
You bet.
All right, Steph, back to you.
Technology. Thanks, Nicole. I said thanks, Nicole, but I was muted. So we'll move on to the next portion of our meeting. If we can advance to the next slide. Thanks, Zubair. So today we discussed the draft funding and policy for various incentive projects to be able to get your feedback on those ideas and proposals. And I think we had some really good discussion, questions, and comments. And so we really appreciate that. Next, we'll go over some important upcoming dates. Next slide, please. So we'll provide a recap of today's meeting at next week's evening community meeting on Tuesday, August 19th at 5 p.m. Tomorrow, staff will begin to write the proposed funding plan, including consideration of today's feedback, and post it to the website on October 10th. That's when you'll have 30 days to review and comment on the proposed plan. We'll have an evening community meeting on October 21st to discuss the proposed plan and answer questions and listen to people's comments. I'll add to recap what Inder and Young had mentioned, that on September 9th, so it's not on the slide, it's like hot off the presses. September 9th, we're planning to have an HVIP work group during the day. So then we'll present the proposed plan at the November 20th board meeting, and you would have another chance to provide verbal comments on the plan during that meeting. So next, I'll wrap up the meeting with our contact slide. Next, thanks. So this slide provides several ways to connect with us. Our main email address is shown second from the bottom. It's clean transportation incentives at arb.ca.gov, and staff dropped that in the chat. Thanks. So we also have the funding plan engagement opportunities webpage linked on the last line as well. Note that our one-on-one meeting requests, we have closed that since staff will be writing the proposed funding plan in the next several weeks. So that's a temporary closure. We'll open it up again later in the year. If staff haven't dropped that link in the chat, feel free to do that. We really appreciate the feedback and the discussion today on all of the draft funding and policy for this year's proposed funding plan. And it's been a pleasure to facilitate today's meeting, and we hope that you have a great afternoon. Thank you. And
Thanks,
Chelsea,
Jen.
you could go ahead and end the meeting.